This is Brother Jamal. I'm coming to you again for my YouTube channel here. And if you want to find out each time that we drop a video, please check us out on our YouTube channel. You can find out exactly when we get ready to drop a video, and you can check us out. Also, we encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to our channel too. That way you can go back and see some of the videos that we have did over a period of time. You may have a special one. You can also, on this video, you can also leave us comments if you choose to. Questions, any kind of feedback, please feel free to do that. Um, I had said on my last video we were doing a series of videos on the New World Order. That's what we've been kind of into. The last one we did was on the New World Order a couple of days ago. This is a second piece to the last video on the New World Order. That's what we're doing a series on. And the reason we're doing that because of the time and how significant this whole thing is. And understand, the New World Order starts off with the United States setting up a geographic war. That's kind of what this is. That's how you have to look at this. United States, a geographic war, um, and this goes all the way back to the time that JFK was president. That's what all this started. I said on the last video, at the time that John F. Kennedy was president, 62, we're talking about 62, 63, during that period. So many things that the United States and the geographic war, so many things that they wanted to do, they weren't able to get them passed at that particular time when he was president. Once he got assassinated, um, everything just kind of kicked in to where they really had the United States had a ideology change and they had a policy change after the assassination of JFK. This is 1963, during that period. Um, and so the whole ideology changed. These people have been trying to push a limited, limited to growth. They've been trying to push that for quite some time. After the assassination of JFK, they were able to put in the limited growth, that whole ideology, that whole thinking. Now, this limited growth comes from these people had decided. I didn't say Allah had decided this. These is what these people had decided that was backing this. They decided that all of a sudden um, the earth was running out of resources, and there wasn't enough resources for everybody. And so the main reason for this crisis was the population. They call it the population bomb. This is what they call it during that time. And so, based on their claim, they began to set things in motion. They began to create programs. They began to get programs to talk about a reproduction rate of down to zero. This is what they was talking about, all the way down to zero. And so, and that was mainly directed at the black, brown, and yellow people in this country and other countries and nations throughout the world of dark-skinned people. That's mainly what that whole, as I said, the whole ideology changed during the 60s. The whole ideology changed on limited population, the population bomb, the whole idea of zero um, Just that everything changed at that particular time. But the whole idea was to bring the population rate down, rate all the way down. They said bring it down, but they said bring it down to zero. The population rate. This is what all this is about. So once again, we're talking about limited growth. That's what we're talking about. Limited to growth. That's the whole idea. Population, depopulation, all of that. And so one of the things that they started doing, uh, the U.S. began in the early 60s. Now understand this. This began in the early 60s. They began to talk about population control. They launched a global crusade. When they started talking about population control, it just went only in the United States. They launched a global crusade to talk about population control. And the global crusade was to reduce the world's population. A global crusade, when they mentioned that, that was to produce, reproduce, if you will, the world's population. And mainly when they started talking about that a global crusade, that was mainly geared at the not the European countries. This was geared at the African countries. This was geared at the people of dark-skinned people, also the Muslim countries. Any countries that wasn't non-white. This is what a lot of this was geared at. So when they mentioned a global crusade, they were talking about, and they said in their writings, beginning in the early 60s, the population control lobbyists, they launched a global crusade to reduce the world's population. And they make a point. They say especially the non-white race, both in third world and in the U.S. itself. And so they launched a host of groups. Zero population, that was one of the groups. Um, Zero population growth, the population crisis committee, and the campaign to check the population explosion. This is some of the groups. These are some of the conservative groups that they launched at that time. And mind you, that George Bush, who at that time was a congressperson, at that particular time, George Bush was a congressperson at that particular time. He was involved in all of this. So all of this that we see in today's time, this started, this whole ideology, this whole population, depopulation, this started back in the early 60s. It started then. The other thing is too is that when you look at some of the key figures in the campaign, not only um, to curb population growth, they also was demanding an end to all economic programs at that particular time too. That had anything to do with encouraging the increase in population, any kind of programs that had anything to do with that, they aimed to target and went after them and cut those programs out. That's what they did at that particular time. The other thing is too, um, we began to see, uh, even as back as 1959, we began to see a look at where they were talking about depopulation and a global crusade. They was talking about this in the 1950s. So it just didn't start, we say the early 60s, but this thing goes all the way back to 1959. That's when it kind of began to, we began to see the whole push towards population control. 1959 going right, taking us right into the early 60s. But 1959, they began to talk about a population control, and they began to talk about population control in a lot of the third world countries. They began to talk about this. So this goes all the way back to the, as I said, 1959, taking us right into the early 60s. This is the whole move, and we're just giving you the history and the background information about the New World Order, because all of this is connected, starting then with the history, and it takes us right up to today's time. All of this is connected. There's no cutoff point because it takes us right in today's time. Once again, this is a segment, the second segment that we are doing on the New World Order, and this segment we are talking about the United States and the demographic war. That's what we call this. United States and the demographic war that started back in 1959, carried us right through the early 60s, right up to today's time. And understand, when we talk about a crusade is population control, depopulation, the population crisis, uh, the population explosion, the population committee and campaign. Uh, all of this has to do with, once again, it has to do with the people of color, black, brown, and yellow people of color, not only inside the U.S., but this is a global crusade that has been launched also outside the U.S. It started in 1959, y'all. So it's nothing that just started. This is something started in 1959. Once again, this is the second segment. I'm Brother Jamal. I want to bring you this through my YouTube channel on the New World Order. Inshallah, we'll continue to bring you more segments, more information, and we'll get more into this as we go along, inshallah.